This is my short assignment 1 assignment. Today I will argue that it does not matter if a person is motivated by instrumental or intrinsic values. There are several different evidence supports that I'll present today. I will begin by arguing that having instrumental or intrinsic value to work towards makes someone more focused and determined to accomplish a goal. Next, I will argue that someone should set their own values, no matter if they are instrumental or intrinsic. In addition to my statement to my supporting arguments, throughout this essay I will include and discuss several real-world examples and quotes from our text and other resources. To begin working, when someone has an instrumental or intrinsic value to work towards, it makes them more determined and focused to achieve this set value or goal. This specific argument can be applied throughout several different scenarios and settings. Some specific scenarios and goals include school, sports, and business. For the purpose of this argument, I will focus on the business setting. When an employee is faced with a specific objective or goal in a business setting, they often have to make personal goals for themselves. Although one often can meet his or her goals by him or herself, having either an instrumental or intrinsic value to work towards can often make the process more successful. The same principle of working to achieve something great than one already has been shown and discussed in several different articles. Some of the articles and discussions we have read and had in class also state the same fact. A specific example of what we have discussed in class is following moral principles and business practices to earn the respect of customers or affiliations in a business setting. A few of the key moral principles that we discussed are that a lot of times people follow the moral values they've grown up with, and many people believe in being honest with the people they work with in a business setting. Most of the discussions we have had in class relate back to the specific supporting argument of when someone has an instrumental or intrinsic value, they are more likely to follow through and achieve success. However, many viewpoints were stated in our class discussions that all lead to the same principle of having overall instrumental and intrinsic values in mind. Some of the specific supporting questions discussed in class that support the supporting argument include: is the good business person one who does whatever it takes to make a profit? Is the good business person one who follows the rules to the bare minimum in order to maximize his or her profits? Is the good person one whose primary value is honesty? And is the good person one who seeks to provide well-being and fulfillment to those connected to his or her business? These questions are cited directly from the weekly email sent out January 15, 2015. Some statements brought up by other students following these questions that directly support my supporting argument of when someone creates and follows through with their own instrumental or intrinsic values, they are typically more successful include: some believe that profit is all that matters. You met some people that were willing to do anything for profit. Others followed the rules to the bare minimum, while others viewed business as a way to contribute to the well-being of others. End quote. These replies were quoted directly from the weekly email sent out on January 22, 2015. Although this is a largely accepted and supported argument, there are other viewpoints regarding this argument. One objection that is often used to challenge this supporting argument is that people should not have an instrumental or intrinsic value to work hard, be successful accomplishing something. I have personally seen people follow this general rule, An example that is very close to me that follows this general rule is my family. My family believes in hard work, and that hard work does not always have to be rewarded. During this past week, I took some time to talk to my father and see exactly how he feels on this topic and the belief of my family. One of the quotes that my father shared with me that really stood out is, begin quote, although hard work may not always be directly rewarded at the time, over time people will recognize this, appreciate this, and remember you for it. This, this was quoted exactly as my father shared it with me. Opponents to this supporting argument sometimes believe that people should simply have a hard work ethic and not require something for it. Although there may be some value to this argument, it is often believed that when a person creates and works to achieve either an instrumental or intrinsic value or goal, that will have a higher rate of continued success. It has also become clear over time that when people set out and have either an instrumental or intrinsic value, they feel better at the end and are more happy and positive throughout the work experience. It has been proven that these two feelings and experiences make for a productive work environment. A specific company that has recognized this concept and put it into place is Google. Google has recognized that if they invest in their employees will feel empowered, happy, and will overall be more productive in their work. A specific quote that summarizes Google's overall initiative is, begin quote, companies like Google have invested more in employee support and employee satisfaction has risen as a result. For Google, it rose by 37%. They know what they are talking about. Under scientifically controlled conditions, making workers happier really pays off. Oswald, 2014, end quote. Another quote that closely relates to this argument is, begin quote, the driving force seems to be that workers use the time they have more effectively, increasing the pace at which they can work without sacrificing quality. End quote, Sigroy, 2014. The next supporting argument that I will explore is that someone should set their own values, no matter if they are instrumental or intrinsic. In fact, many people have already taken this initiative in many areas of their lives. My main focus throughout this essay in regard to this supporting argument is how people have put this idea into practice in their business professional life. With regards to what people have already begun to do, I argue that when people create their own instrumental and intrinsic values, the values are more likely to be challenging but achievable, and people are more likely to be successful in achieving their own instrumental or intrinsic values or goals. When speaking to different people, I have often found that things that someone has always wanted to accomplish ultimately become someone's largest and most powerful instrumental or intrinsic value or goal. I have also come to understand that although these instrumental or intrinsic values or goals are often very difficult for people, that often gain a large amount of education. They often gain a large amount of education and experience working to achieve these values or goals. During this past weekend, I spoke with one of my friends from high school in regards to this supporting argument. The topic in which he was discussing is how he has had to set his own instrumental and intrinsic values and goals in his workplace, and then work to achieve success with them. However, along the way of achieving success, my friend has had to deal with a few nonverbal learning disabilities. Specifically, my friend has had to deal with a social disability referred to as Asperger's syndrome. A quote of my friend that supports my supporting argument is, begin quote, setting my own instrumental and intrinsic values, I have been able to build a series of challenging but achievable instrumental and intrinsic values and goals for myself. Being able to do this, I have learned and experienced many things. This process has also allowed me to step outside of my comfort zone on several different occasions. This is a end quote. This is a direct quote from one of my friends from high school. This is one of the several examples that I've heard in the past that directly supports my supporting argument. A counter-argument to this supporting argument is that a company will achieve more success in the short run and over time if they are able to set more instrumental and intrinsic values and goals for its employees. Businesses often argue that they can better fulfill their overall business objectives if they're able to gauge and develop different employees' values and goals to create a whole plan overall. This idea is often demonstrated through the movie Margin Call. At one point, the character Sam attempts to say something about it to upper management, but is quickly denied based upon his statement. Sam also argued that by the business creating instrumental and intrinsic values and goals for their employees, they would lose valuable customers in the process of attempting to achieve these values and goals. In fact, the overall class came to an agreement, which was stated in the weekly email, that very closely responds with this counter argument. The direct quote from the notes is, begin quote, you guys noticed a number of key factors, including the idea that there was incredible intensity but no panic. There was clearly little time for reflection, and the message seems to be that there's no time or place in business for a reflection on the nature and implications of one's actions. You also notice that there was a clear lack of compassion and respect for individual dignity. Against a popular message in the LEs, it did not seem employee well-being was paramount. End quote. I quoted this directly from the weekly email sent out on January 22nd, 2015. A potential rebuttal to this counter-argument is that often workers know their own personal limits better than their employers may know. With this, workers often know what their personal strengths and weaknesses are. They also know that although they should set their instrumental and intrinsic values and goals so that they step outside of their comfort zone, they also often know the steps in which they need to accomplish and succeed in this regard. This is one of the several possible different approaches to rebuttal against this particular counter-argument. Overall, in this essay, I have explored in depth my main argument that it does not matter if a person is motivated by instrumental or intrinsic values. The first supporting argument that I used to prove my main argument is that having an instrumental or intrinsic value to work towards makes someone more focused and determined to accomplish a goal. The second supporting argument that I used to prove my overall argument is that someone should set their own values, no matter if they're instrumental or intrinsic. My main argument in this essay is something that has always and will most likely always be prevalent throughout our society. It will be interesting to see how the idea behind my main argument changes and evolves throughout coming generations in our society.